Hey there, ready for a deep dive into something really fascinating. You mentioned wanting to learn more about Jacques Vallee and his work, so we're going to go deep into the world of UFOs and parapsychology, but through the lens of hard science. It's not your typical alien conspiracy theory stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Our main source today is Vallee's interview on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, which is full of mind-blowing stories and insights.
What's incredible about Vallée is that he's not just a UFO enthusiast.
Right. Yeah.
He's a scientist who brings a rigorous, evidence-based approach to these often dismissed subjects.
Exactly.
He really tries to connect the dots between science and the unexplained.
And he's got this amazing background starting as a computer scientist at SRI, deeply involved with the early development of the ARPANET, the precursor to the internet.
Yeah.
But then he goes on to champion parapsychology research, things like remote viewing. It's quite a journey.
It is, and it actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. His early work on the ARPANET was all about connecting different nodes, sharing information, creating a network. And in a way, that's what he's doing with his research into UFOs and parapsychology.
Right.
He's looking for patterns, connections, a bigger picture that ties it all together.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection.
Yeah.
So let's dig into this parapsychology stuff a bit further. You specifically wanted to understand Vallee's take on remote viewing, right?
Absolutely.
So what are your initial thoughts on this whole concept?
It's definitely one of those things that can sound a little out there.
Yeah.
But Vallee's approach is grounded in real-world experiments and data.
Okay.
And let's define it clearly for anyone listening who might not be familiar.
Yeah.
Remote viewing is essentially the ability to describe or gain information about a remote location without using your typical senses.
Okay.
It's all about accessing information purely through the mind.
Wow, that sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie. But Vallee was actually involved in some serious research on this at SRI. He even tried it himself and had a chilling experience while remote viewing a peak in the Andes.
Oh, wow.
He described feeling extreme cold fear, even the terrifying sensation of falling, all while being safe inside a lab.
That's crazy.
If you were in his shoes, how do you think you would react to such an experience?
I mean, I can't imagine having that experience, but that's what's so compelling about Vallee's accounts.
Right.
He's not just theorizing, he's sharing his own experiences. That story about the Andes, for instance, suggests that remote viewing can be a deeply visceral experience.
Okay.
Not just an intellectual exercise. It really makes you question the limits of human perception.
Definitely. And it wasn't just about personal experiences. There were some pretty impressive results from other remote viewers, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like Joe McMoneagle, who reportedly used this technique to locate a lost spacecraft in a jungle.
Wow.
And even uncover hidden military installations.
That's incredible.
It's mind-blowing to think that this could be a real capability. What do you make of that, especially knowing that intelligence agencies were very interested in these experiments?
It certainly raises a lot of questions about what's possible. Imagine the implications for intelligence gathering, especially during the Cold War, being able to access information remotely without any physical risk. It's no wonder intelligence agencies were intrigued.
Absolutely, and it makes you wonder if there's more to our minds than we realize. Maybe we all have latent abilities that we're just not tapping into.
That's a fascinating possibility, and it ties back to Vallee's fascination with information and systems.
Right.
He sees the human mind as part of a larger network connected in ways we don't fully understand.
Okay, so we've covered remote viewing, but you also wanted to delve into Vallee's analysis of UFOs.
Absolutely.
He takes a unique approach, digging into historical accounts and looking for patterns across centuries. I'm curious, what are your initial impressions of this approach? Do you find it more credible than focusing on modern sightings alone?
I think it adds a whole other dimension to the conversation,
Yeah.
Most people think of UFOs as a modern phenomenon, but Vallee shows us that these sightings, these encounters have been happening for centuries.
And he's not just cherry-picking stories.
Right.
He's meticulous about his methodology, analyzing historical records, taking into account the scientific understanding and technology available at the time.
Yeah, it's not just about believing every story.
Right.
It's about looking for consistent threads and patterns.
Exactly. He even points to this ancient coin from Burgundy depicting a disc-shaped object protecting a town from arrows. It's hard to dismiss as just a coincidence, especially when you consider how many similar depictions exist throughout history.
That's right.
Right? It makes you wonder if our ancestors might have witnessed something that we're only starting to grasp now.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of Vallee's work.
Yeah.
He encourages critical thinking, but he's also open to the possibility that there's more to our history and to reality itself than we might assume.
So we've got historical accounts, modern sightings, and even potential evidence of remote viewing. Where do we go from here?
Well, Vallee doesn't stop there. He also digs into specific cases, looking for those that defy conventional explanations.
Oh.
And one that really stands out is his analysis of the 3 cases detailed in his book, Trinity: Roswell, Socorro, and Valensole.
Roswell is obviously the big one, but you mentioned wanting to focus on Vallee's less mainstream work. So let's talk about Socorro and Valensole. What makes these cases so intriguing, especially coming from someone like Vallee?
I think what's compelling is the level of detail and the consistent descriptions across both cases. An egg-shaped craft, small humanoid beings, even physical traces left behind.
Yeah.
These weren't just fleeting glimpses. There was real evidence to be investigated.
And what really struck me is the fact that both cases involved official investigations by government agencies.
Oh, wow.
We're not talking about random sightings here.
Right.
We're talking about police reports, FBI involvement, and in the Valensole case, multiple French government agencies getting involved.
Exactly, and they weren't able to simply brush it off as hoaxes or misinterpretations. In Socorro, a police officer had a close encounter, actually saw the craft and the beings, and was so shaken that he wanted to confess to a priest before speaking to investigators.
That's wild.
It is.
It's hard to imagine a police officer making up a story like that, especially knowing the scrutiny he would face. And the Valensole case involved a farmer whose entire crop was damaged by the landing craft. It's not like these were just stories whispered in dark corners. These events had real-world consequences.
That's right. And remember, we're talking about physical evidence found at these sites.
Right.
In both cases, there were landing marks, scorched earth, even materials collected and analyzed.
Wow.
Vallee highlights that even with all their resources and expertise, these agencies couldn't come up with conventional explanations. It really makes you question what else could have been at play.
Absolutely. We've got historical accounts, modern sightings with government involvement, and even potential evidence of psychic abilities. It's all starting to feel a bit like a sci-fi movie come to life.
It does, doesn't it?
It does.
But what's even more fascinating is how Vallee connects all of this to technology, even questioning whether some UFO sightings could be explained by advanced technology, potentially even our own.
Wait, hold on. You're saying some of these UFO sightings might not be alien spacecraft at all, but rather something created here on Earth.
It's a possibility that Vallee explores, and it ties back to his understanding of how technology can be used to create illusions and manipulate perceptions.
Okay, you're going to have to elaborate on that one. How could technology explain something like the Tic Tac UFO that was seen by Navy pilots that things seem to defy the laws of physics?
Well, Vallee doesn't claim to have all the answers, but he points out that technology exists even decades ago that could manipulate radar signals and create some very convincing illusions.
So you're talking about something like a stealth aircraft, but even more advanced. Something that could make an object appear to disappear, reappear in a different location, or even mimic the characteristics of another aircraft.
Exactly. And while we can't say for sure what the Tic Tac was, Vallee suggests that we shouldn't rule out the possibility of advanced technology, either from another country or potentially even our own government being involved in some of these sightings.
Wow.
It might be about intentional misdirection testing reactions, or even pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
That's a whole other layer to this already complex puzzle, and it makes you wonder how much we don't know about what's happening in our own skies.
It does, and it highlights the importance of critical thinking, of considering all possibilities and not jumping to conclusions based on limited information.
Okay, this is all getting a bit mind-boggling. We've gone from remote viewing to ancient coins to potentially secret government technology. Where do we even go from here?
Well, Vallee doesn't shy away from the big questions, and he connects all of this to the even more mind-bending concept of interdimensional travel.
Hold on, other dimensions, like something out of a science fiction movie?
It might sound far-fetched, but theoretical physics has been exploring the concept of multiple dimensions for decades.
Okay.
And Vallee connects this to his own research on interdimensional travel, suggesting that some UFOs might be utilizing technology or principles that we're only beginning to grasp.
So are we saying that UFOs could be popping in and out of our reality like it's nothing?
It's a possibility that Vallee takes seriously, and it challenges our understanding of what's real and what's possible.
This is definitely getting into Twilight Zone territory. I'm not sure if I'm ready to accept interdimensional travel just yet, but it's certainly an intriguing concept. And Vallée doesn't just throw out wild ideas, he tries to ground them in his research and the evidence he's gathered.
That's right.
So,
He's not just coming up with things off the top of his head.
right. Before we get too lost in the multidimensional rabbit hole, let's bring it back to Vallée himself. After years of studying UFOs and unexplained phenomena, he actually had a personal encounter.
He did. After years of research and investigation, Vallée experienced a strange encounter on his last night at his Redwood Forest property. He described a light filling his house, then moving down his driveway, illuminating the whole forest with an eerie blue glow.
Wow, that sounds both eerie and amazing. He never saw a classic disc-shaped craft, but this light, with its seemingly intelligent movement, left a lasting impression on him. What do you think? Could this experience have been a turning point in his research, perhaps even a confirmation of some of his theories?
It's hard to say for sure, but it certainly reinforces his point that these phenomena can manifest in unexpected ways even to those who've spent years studying them.
Right.
And it highlights the limitations of our current scientific framework when trying to explain these events.
Okay, I think we need to pause here for a moment and digest all of this incredible information. We've covered a lot of ground in part one of our deep dive into the world of Jacques Vallee.
We have, from his background in computer science and his work on the ARPANET to his explorations of remote viewing and his personal UFO encounter, it's clear that Vallee's approach is anything but conventional.
He's a scientist who's not afraid to tackle the big questions, to challenge the status quo, and to explore the fringes of what we consider possible. And we'll pick up the conversation in part two, delving deeper into Vallee's theories and what they mean for our understanding of consciousness technology and the nature of reality itself.
Stay tuned. We're just getting started.
All right, see you there.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome back. We're continuing our deep dive into the world of Jacques Vallee, the scientist who's not afraid to tackle the truly strange UFOs, parapsychology, and the very nature of reality itself.
And in the last part, we left off with some pretty mind-blowing concepts, like the idea that some UFOs might be using interdimensional travel to pop in and out of our reality.
Right. It's like stepping into a science fiction novel, but with a credible scientist as our guide.
Exactly.
And you mentioned being particularly interested in Vallee's idea of a control system, this intelligence that might be subtly influencing humanity.
Yes. It's a really thought-provoking concept. Remember that analogy of the Gardner Valley suggests that this control system might be shaping our culture beliefs, even our technology, much like a gardener guides the growth of their plants.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around that. So it's not necessarily about aliens and spaceships, but something more like a guiding force operating behind the scenes.
Exactly. And Vallée points out that we're constantly being influenced by things we're not fully aware of, our genes, our environment. The media we consume, this control system, if it exists, might be another layer of influence, one that we're just starting to recognize.
You mentioned in your request that you were intrigued by Vallee's scientific background. Does this idea of a control system coming from a respected scientist make you more open to the possibility, or does it still feel a bit too out there?
It's definitely challenging to reconcile with our typical understanding of the world, but I think that's what makes Vallee's work so compelling. He's asking us to expand our awareness, to consider that there might be forces at play that we haven't even begun to comprehend.
It's like he's saying, hey, wake up, there might be more going on here than meets the eye.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the UFO phenomenon. Vallee suggests that some UFO sightings, especially the ones that defy conventional explanations, could be manifestations of this control system.
So instead of physical aliens and spaceships, we might be seeing something more like projections or maybe even manipulations of our reality orchestrated by this intelligence.
That's a possibility that Vallee explores. He's not saying it's definitely the case, but he's encouraging us to consider that explanation, especially when dealing with sightings that seem to defy the laws of physics as we understand them.
Okay, I'm trying to keep an open mind here, but it's still a lot to process. So if this control system is real, why would it be doing this? What's the purpose?
That's the million-dollar question, and Vallee doesn't claim to have all the answers, but he offers some thought-provoking possibilities. He compares it to anthropologists studying isolated tribes, observing their culture, their behavior, their development.
Yeah. So maybe we're the tribe, and this control system is the anthropologist observing us, studying us, maybe even subtly guiding our evolution.
It's a chilling thought, isn't it? And it really challenges our assumptions about our place in the universe. We like to think we're in control, but what if we're part of a much larger experiment, one that we're only beginning to glimpse?
Okay, now you're really freaking me out, but I have to admit it's also incredibly fascinating. So if this is happening, what can we do about it? Are we just pawns in this cosmic game?
Valley suggests that awareness is the first step by understanding the possibility of this influence. We can start to become more conscious of the choices we make, more discerning about the information we consume.
It's like waking up from a dream and realizing that there's more to reality than we previously perceived. And with that awareness comes a sense of responsibility, a need to question, to seek knowledge, and to make conscious choices.
Exactly. It's not about living in fear or feeling powerless, but about becoming active participants in our own evolution.
Okay, I can get behind that. It's about taking ownership of our choices, even in the face of forces that might be beyond our understanding.
Right, and it ties back to one of Valley's core beliefs, the importance of rigorous scientific investigation, even when dealing with the seemingly impossibilistic. He's not asking us to blindly believe in anything. He's encouraging us to question, to explore, to apply critical thinking, and to look for evidence, even if it challenges our current understanding of the world.
That's a great point. He's a scientist after all. So let's shift gears for a moment and go back to those remote viewing experiments. You were fascinated by the idea that someone could see things remotely just using their mind. Vallée himself tried it and had that disturbing experience with the peak in the Andes, but there were also some surprisingly accurate results, right?
Absolutely. And some of the most compelling examples come from Ingo Swann, who played a key role in developing a more structured approach to remote viewing called coordinate remote viewing.
Okay, remind me how that works again.
It's like giving someone an address, but instead of a street address, it's coordinates like latitude and longitude. The remote viewer then tries to describe what's at that location purely through their mind without ever physically being there.
So it's like mental GPS. You give the mind coordinates and it can somehow tune into that location.
It's a pretty wild concept, but there were some remarkable successes. For example, Swann was able to accurately describe the rings of Jupiter before scientists even had photographic evidence of their existence.
Hold on, he saw the rings of Jupiter before scientists knew they were there. That's incredible.
Right, and it suggests that remote viewing might be tapping into something beyond our current understanding of space and time.
It's like our minds are capable of accessing information in a way that we haven't fully grasped yet.
Exactly. And Valley sees this as another piece of the puzzle, another clue that points to the vast potential of human consciousness.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all of this connects the UFOs, the control system, the remote viewing. It's like Vallée is painting this picture of a reality that's far more complex and interconnected than we ever imagined.
It is, and it's a picture that challenges our assumptions, pushes the boundaries of what we consider possible, and ultimately invites us to become active explorers of the unknown.
Speaking of exploring the unknown, let's talk about some of the more bizarre and intriguing cases that Vallée has investigated. He mentioned an incident where molten steel fell from the sky. I mean, how is that even possible?
It's a real head-scratcher. Imagine a mass of glowing liquid steel suddenly crashing into a park in Omaha, Nebraska, just a week before Christmas. We're talking half a ton of molten metal seemingly appearing out of nowhere.
But how is that even possible? Wouldn't it have cooled and solidified before it hit the ground?
That's what makes it so strange.
Yeah.
Witnesses described it as glowing liquid metal, and it took several hours to cool. Completely. Firefighters were called in to put out the grass fire it started, and the police even collected samples for analysis.
Okay, so it definitely happened. What did the analysis show? Is it some kind of industrial waste?
The metal was confirmed to be steel, but its composition was unusual. Not like anything produced locally. Investigators contacted the local steel company, but they had no furnaces operating that weekend.
What about the Air Force? Could it have been something from a plane?
They checked with the Strategic Air Command, but the Air Force denied any involvement, stating they don't exactly carry molten steel furnaces on their B-52s.
So it wasn't a plane and it wasn't industrial waste. Where did this molten steel come from?
That's the mystery, and it gets even more interesting. Vallée worked with scientists at Stanford to analyze the steel using advanced techniques, looking for any clues about its origin.
And what did they find?
The results were inconclusive. They couldn't find any evidence of manipulation or anything that pointed to a definitive explanation.
So it's a dead end, another unexplained phenomenon.
Not necessarily. While they didn't find a definitive answer, the case highlights the importance of applying rigorous scientific methods to these events. Vallée sees it as a learning experience, helping to refine their techniques for analyzing evidence and establishing protocols for future investigations.
It's amazing that he didn't just dismiss it as a hoax or something. He genuinely wanted to understand what happened, even if it meant venturing into the unknown. It really shows his dedication to uncovering the truth, no matter how strange it might be.
Absolutely. He's not afraid to challenge assumptions, even his own. And that brings us to one of his most controversial ideas, the possibility that some UFO sightings are deliberate deceptions.
Deceptions, you mean staged events, but who would do that and why?
Vallee encountered some intriguing technology during his time in Silicon Valley. He learned about a device called the DSPR, or radar feedback device, that can manipulate radar signals, making objects appear to disappear, reappear, or even look like something else entirely.
Hold on, so they could make a small plane look like a giant spaceship on radar.
Exactly, and this technology existed decades ago. Vallee suggests that it could have been used to create some of the more puzzling UFO sightings, especially those involving military aircraft.
So you're saying some of these sightings, especially those involving military airspace or technology, might have been intentional, but what would be the purpose?
That's the big question, Vallee suggests. It could be about testing reactions, evaluating radar capabilities, or even psychological warfare.
So it's like a giant game of cat and mouse, but with incredibly high stakes.
It's a possibility that Vallee takes seriously. He even connects this to the famous Nimitz encounter, where fighter pilots described seeing a tic-tac-shaped object that seemed to defy the laws of physics.
That was a huge story. Are you suggesting that the tic-tac might have been some kind of elaborate military experiment designed to test the pilots and their radar systems?
It's a theory that Vallee considers. He's not saying it's definitely the case, but he emphasizes the need to be cautious when interpreting UFO sightings, especially those involving military technology.
Wow, that adds a whole new layer of complexity to this puzzle.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how much we really know about what's happening in our own skies.
It does, and it highlights the importance of considering all possible explanations from the mundane to the extraordinary and being willing to challenge our assumptions.
Okay, so we've got molten steel falling from the sky, remote viewers accessing information across space and time, and the possibility that some UFO sightings are deliberate deceptions. Where does it all lead? What's the ultimate message here?
I think Vallee's work ultimately challenges us to think bigger, to question our assumptions about reality, and to be open to the possibility that there's much more to the universe than we currently understand.
And to be more aware, more discerning, more conscious of the forces that might be shaping our world, both seen and unseen.
Exactly, and that includes being open to the possibility that we might not be alone, that there might be other intelligences out there interacting with our reality in ways we're only beginning to grasp.
Okay, now we're getting back to those big questions. If there are other intelligences out there, why are they here? What do they want?
Those are the questions that have haunted humanity for centuries, and Vallee doesn't claim to have all the answers.
But he's not afraid to explore the possibilities, right? He doesn't just dismiss them as crazy talk.
Right, he looks at the evidence, he considers different perspectives, and he encourages us to do the same. He often compares it to anthropologists studying isolated tribes, fascinated by their culture, their behavior, their development.
So maybe we're the tribe and these other intelligences are the anthropologists observing us, studying us, maybe even subtly guiding our evolution. It's a mind-blowing concept, isn't it?
It is, and it challenges us to reconsider our place in the universe, to acknowledge that we might not be as unique or as advanced as we like to think.
And maybe to be a little more humble, a little more curious, and a lot more open-minded.
Exactly. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of Vallee's work, his exploration of the paranormal. Those experiences that seem to defy the laws of nature as we understand them.
Okay, you're talking about things like ghosts, psychic abilities, out-of-body experiences.
The things that science traditionally has a hard time explaining. But Vallee doesn't just dismiss them as fantasy or delusion. He sees them as potential clues to a deeper reality, one that might operate according to principles we haven't yet discovered.
So instead of rejecting these experiences, he's trying to understand them, to find a way to integrate them into a more holistic view of the universe.
Exactly. And this is where Vallee's approach gets really interesting. He's not just looking for physical evidence or scientific explanations. He's considering the psychological and cultural aspects of these experiences.
So he's not just a scientist, he's also a bit of a philosopher, a historian, maybe even a mythologist.
He's trying to understand these phenomena from multiple angles, weaving together science, history, mythology, and even personal experience to create a richer, more nuanced understanding of the world.
Okay, I have to admit this is all starting to feel a bit overwhelming. We've got UFOs, control systems, interdimensional travel, remote viewing, and now paranormal phenomena. It's a lot to process.
It is, and I think that's part of what makes Vallee's work so captivating. He's not just presenting dry facts and theories. He's taking us on a journey of exploration, a journey into the unknown, and inviting us to question everything we thought we knew about reality.
It's like he's saying, hey, The world is a much stranger and more wonderful place than you might think. Are you ready to explore it?
Exactly. And that sense of wonder, that willingness to embrace the mystery, is what makes his work so inspiring.
Okay, I think we need to take another pause here and let all of this sink in. In part 2 of our deep dive, we've explored Vallee's more controversial theories from the control system to interdimensional travel, and we've delved into his investigations of unexplained phenomena, both scientific and paranormal.
We've seen how he weaves together evidence from multiple disciplines, challenging our assumptions and expanding our awareness of what's possible.
And we've seen how he encourages us to be more active participants in our own understanding of the universe, to question, to explore, and to never stop wondering.
We'll wrap up our exploration in part 3, delving deeper into Vallee's theories and considering what they mean for our understanding of consciousness technology and our place in the cosmos. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring the mind-blowing world of Jacques Vallee, the scientist who's not afraid to tackle UFOs, parapsychology, and the very nature of reality. You wanted to understand how someone with a serious scientific background approaches these subjects, and, well, we've uncovered a lot of fascinating stuff so far.
We have, from Vallee's early work on the ARPANET to remote viewing experiments, strange lights in the redwood forest, even molten steel falling from the sky. We've covered a lot of ground.
Exactly, and you were particularly intrigued by his idea of a control system, this potential non-human intelligence that might be influencing us.
Yeah.
It can be a tough concept to grasp, but I think we're starting to see how it ties into Vallee's broader work.
It does remember that analogy of the gardener.
Right.
Vallee suggests this control system might be shaping our culture beliefs, even our technology, in subtle ways, just like gardener tends their plants.
Yeah.
It's a challenging idea, but it asks us to consider whether we're as in control of our destiny as we think we are.
Right. And you mentioned that this idea coming from a scientist like Vallee actually made you think twice about it. It's not just some fringe theory. It's being proposed by someone who's dedicated their life to scientific inquiry.
Exactly. And that's what makes Vallee so unique. He doesn't just dismiss these unusual phenomena. He applies his scientific training to try and make sense of them.
So how does this control system idea connect to UFO sightings? We talked about how some sightings could be explained by advanced technology, but Vallee takes it a step further.
He does. He suggests that some UFOs, especially those that seem to defy the laws of physics, might actually be manifestations of this control system interacting with our reality in ways we don't fully understand.
So instead of physical aliens in spaceships, we might be seeing something more like projections or even manipulations of our reality orchestrated by this intelligence.
That's the idea. It's not about little green men coming to visit. It's about something potentially far more complex and powerful operating on a level that we're only beginning to glimpse.
Okay. I'm trying to keep an open mind here, but it's a lot to take in, and it raises even more questions like, if this control system is real, why is it interacting with us? What's its purpose?
That's the big mystery. And Vallee doesn't pretend to have all the answers, but he offers, some possibilities. He compares it to anthropologists studying isolated tribes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're observing us, studying our behavior, our culture, our technology.
So maybe we're the tribe, and this control system is the anthropologist subtly guiding our development. It's a bit unsettling, isn't it?
It is. It makes you wonder how much of our history, our evolution, has been influenced by forces that we're not even aware of.
Okay, that's definitely food for thought, but even if we entertain this possibility, what can we do about it? Are we just pawns in this cosmic game?
Well, I think Vallee believes that awareness is the key.
Okay.
By understanding the potential influence of this system, we can become more discerning, more conscious of the choices we make, less susceptible to manipulation.
So it's not about living in fear, but about being informed, questioning the information we receive, and taking responsibility for our own actions.
Right. It's about waking up to the possibility that there's more to reality than we previously thought, and then deciding how we want to engage with it.
This is all getting pretty deep, and I have to admit a bit philosophical, but Vallee always brings it back to science, right?
He does.
He emphasizes the importance of evidence of critical thinking, even when dealing with the seemingly impossible.
He does. And that's what makes his approach so unique. He's not afraid to ask the big questions, to explore the unknown. But he always does so with a scientific lens. He doesn't just accept things at face value. He wants to see the evidence, to test the theories, to apply rigorous methodology.
That's what separates him from a lot of the UFO enthusiasts out there. He's not just looking for confirmation of his beliefs, he's genuinely trying to understand what's going on, even if it means challenging his own assumptions. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of his work, the idea that some UFO sightings might actually be staged events, deliberate deceptions.
Yes, this goes back to his understanding of technology and its potential to be used in ways that blur the lines between reality and illusion. He encountered some fascinating technology during his time in Silicon Valley, including devices that could manipulate radar signals, creating all sorts of convincing illusions.
So we're talking about technology that could make a small plane look like a giant spaceship on radar.
Exactly. And Valley suggests that this kind of technology could have been used to create some of the more puzzling UFO sightings, especially those involving military aircraft. He even connects this to the famous Nimitz encounter, where fighter pilots describe seeing a tic-tac-shaped object that seemed to defy the laws of physics.
That was a huge story. You're suggesting that the Tic Tac might have been part of some kind of elaborate military experiment.
It's a possibility that Valley considers, he's not saying it's definitely the case, but he emphasizes the need to be cautious when interpreting these sightings, especially when advanced technology could be involved.
It's like a giant game of smoke and mirrors, but with incredibly high stakes.
Right, and it makes you wonder how much we really know about what's going on in our own skies.
Okay, we've explored Vallee's background, his research into UFOs and parapsychology, his theories about control systems and interdimensional travel, even the possibility of deliberate deception. It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've challenged our assumptions, expanded our awareness, and considered possibilities that might have seemed outlandish before.
So what does it all mean? What are the key takeaways from our deep dive into the world of Jacques Vallee?
I think the most important one is that reality is far more complex and mysterious than we tend to assume. There might be forces at play, dimensions of existence that we're only beginning to glimpse.
It's a call to be more open-minded, to question the narratives we've been given, and to embrace the mystery of the unknown.
And to remember that the journey of discovery is just as important as the destination.
Beautifully said. This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of Jacques Vallee. We've explored his scientific background, his intriguing research, and his truly mind-bending theories. You wanted to understand how a scientist approaches these topics, and I think we've accomplished that.
We have Valley's work shows us that it's possible to approach the unknown with both curiosity and critical thinking, and to always be open to new possibilities.
If you're ready to continue exploring, I highly recommend checking out Vallee's books. They're filled with fascinating cases, in-depth analysis, and thought-provoking insights.
Absolutely. It's a journey well worth taking for anyone who's ever looked up at the night sky and wondered about the mysteries that lie beyond.
And as you continue your exploration, here's a final thought to ponder. If UFOs are indeed interacting with our reality from other dimensions, what does that imply about the nature of consciousness and our perception of the universe? What other possibilities might be out there waiting to be discovered?
That's a question that could keep us pondering for a lifetime.
Indeed, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Jacques Vallee. Until next time, keep your minds open, your curiosity alive, and never stop exploring the wonders of the universe.